the fastest, most impactful thing that we can do for our clients, which is basically a combination of LSAs and, verified GBPs. But Google obviously doesn't make it easy for us for a lot of
They don't
reasons.
like it. They don't like that strategy. They would fight against it for sure.
I know.
So yeah,
I,
it's always a balance. It's fun being a marketer.
yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you about some other things too when it comes to like traditional local SEO tactics and maybe some untraditional and gray hat stuff too. Um, Talk to me about citations. What's your stance on them?
Yeah, we don't do a lot of them at all. So the only time we usually do citations is during a business move and or new office, and that's it. And we have a small list, and I would say that the list really depends on the industry. So I will say that in legal, there's a lot of niche directory sites that actually rank really well, like Justia and Avo and FindLaw and places like that. Although a lot of them are paid. So, there's limits on what you can do if they don't want to pay. But usually those ones are worthwhile. And I take the value of a directory based on how well it ranks on Google. So I feel like a lot of people aren't evaluating that, or they probably wouldn't have lists of hundreds. But we've done some tests. I actually have it on our YouTube channel. So the Sterling Sky YouTube channel, we did a episode recently. It's about an hour long where I talk about this and reveal all these tests that we did. And the bulk of it is like citations. Even though we were able to create them and see a small ranking boost, we only saw the ranking boost to organic rankings, not local pack rankings, which kind of goes against what people say. So I found that interesting. And then also the gains were temporary. Black hats say a lot of really smart stuff, and I follow a lot of black hats, and I love some of the things that they share. But I feel like what's missing is the long term stuff. Like, okay, cool, this impacts ranking. What about a month from now? Did you keep that? And what we
Mhm.
found with citations is even if we could get Google to index them, which is tough because usually most of them don't get indexed. So like 95% of the ones we looked at for a personal injury lawyer that they were paying a lot of money. I'm not going to name the company, but they're paying a lot of money to a service that you pay for annually for them to manage your citations,
Yeah.
thousands of dollars a year. And they had like 700 citations. 96%, I believe, were not in Google's index. Literally
Yeah.
worthless. Like they're not
Yeah.
helping your ranking if they're not in Google's index. So basically, the nutshell or the TLDR of it is that you want to have a small number of citations. The ones you should have are ones that rank on Google. Search your competitors, brand names, do a few searches. You'll come up with a list. It's not rocket science. Anything above and beyond that likely isn't worth doing. But again, you can always test it. We
Yeah.
haven't found that. I like listed a couple examples, but it's not something that we would do monthly for clients.
Yeah, that's very fair. What I always tell folks here in the blueprint is because I think citations to me get misconstrued as like brown book and stuff like that, like the kind of like the back door of the internet, as I like to call it, where it's like if people don't use them to find what that client does, then it's just not going to do it. You can do it. Like you can go pay for 100 citations to get built. I don't think it's going to hurt you. But I also don't think it's going to help you. And for me, something I always teach and coach here from agencies is it's kind of like if you're a marathon runner, like save your energy. Like don't
Yeah.
expend energy or resource on stuff that like isn't going to do anything. It's just not worth it. So, we have this kind of list internally. We kind of bulk citations in with link building. We have three tiers: tier one, tier two, tier three. Tier one is like PR links, right?
Mhm.
Tier two is going to be like your standard kind of like contextual link. And then tier three are going to be like citations. We don't call them citations. I call them like aggregator websites. And that's to your point, the way that we do it and the way that I coach here in the blueprint is to do link building research is to just take the keywords, see what's ranking, and then if like you search for like Miami HVAC, like whatever, like Angie's list, like you should be on there, right? Because those are opportunities not just from
Yep.
an SEO point of view, but also like you can get clients that way, because if Google is ranking that website in the first page, it's sending thousands of visitors there per month because that's what people want to see. And then they're just, navigating there because they compare and contrast. It's just like same thing as the maps pack, right? It's why people love the maps pack because they don't really have to like from a user point of view, I don't want to go to 10 websites and like scroll through all the content that's just a wall of text and it's all the same, right? Like I want to read reviews, I want to see pictures, I want to see where you are. So that's what we teach coaches. It's always good to hear that. Everyone's just got different opinions on citations, right? Like some people swear by them. And I understand too, is that like if it's a new website, like a brand new website, and I think this is where people get tripped up, is they look from a link building point of view and they're like, well, I'm not fully comfortable like building links to a website that's brand new because it looks unnatural. And I always tell people, like, just if it was your business, like, what would you be doing to get customers, right? Just focus on the websites that you think are going to get you traffic and customers, and like you'll always be safe that way. Of course, with agencies, that then creates the problem of, again, time, effort, resources, because sometimes you just don't have the budget and the bandwidth to create that much, for clients. Okay, so another one, and this one is teetering much more gray hat. If you thought Citations was gray hat, brace yourself.
It's not gray hat. It's a pretty white hat, actually, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about CTR, because this is something I saw the Google Leak stream that you did with Rand and Mike. It was really, really good. And like, I think that was a stream too where you guys actually went out and pushed, or maybe Rand did that. Either way, like live CTR testing right on for
Yeah.
the local business, and it worked, right? So well, not even in theory, right? Like we kind of know that it does work, and we also understand why in theory and in practice why it does work, right? If there's demand for it, it's kind of like branded search. You can't really fake that signal. You can kind of fake CTR, and that's what I want to ask you about. Is CTR, we'll call it manipulation, is that a thing that you see as effective when it's not done by droves of actual humans on a live call that's in a controlled environment that can be manipulated with software or VPNs or stuff like that?
It 100% works. Seen enough evidence to know it works. And we've done our own testing with it, but it is not something I will do for clients, because I do think that it falls into the same window as certain link building tactics that I refuse to do. It works short term. Long term, no. It depends on how much you're willing to keep going. So, and also depends on how easy, or I should say easy, how good you are at fooling Google into making sure it looks natural. Because most of the CTR manipulation I've seen actually a bunch on attorneys, and like, it's so ridiculously obvious that they're doing CTR manipulation. Like, it doesn't look the least bit natural, and it doesn't work. The stuff that I have seen work is something that looks more natural. It's very hard to do. So I think a lot of people get it wrong. And a recent podcast I was actually listening to, which is a semi black hat podcast, was talking about the risks of it. And there's apparently some huge risks. Like, you could actually do it. Google realizes you're doing CTR manipulation and you actually drop in ranking. And that was like really good news to me. I was like, oh, it's good that like Google's already figured out people are doing this. And I've also heard, like, again, from black hats, that it doesn't even work on certain devices. You have to spoof your device, and like, it works better on iPhones than Androids, which makes perfect sense because Google's got a lot more data on Android users than they do on iPhone users. And it's all these little nuances. Definitely works. If you're the type of business that's okay having highs and lows, and okay knowing it will give you a huge spike, but then you might have a giant crash coming later, then go for it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be there for. I don't like the highs and lows. This is why I'm not a black hat. Like, the roller coaster is not for me.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're dealing with clients, right? I mean, I don't want to throw the word ethics around. There's obviously some ethics involved, right? Whenever you're putting your client in a sense where, especially in the injury space, like, they pay a lot of money. They pay us a lot of money for something that, it's going to sound weird saying this. It's not necessarily a ton of work in the sense they're really paying us more for the projected outcome, for the value that it can drive, rather than like the fact that we're putting in 100 hours a week to manage the service, right? And to me, there's an ethical question about doing something that you're knowingly putting somebody in harm's way. It's one thing if you're building links on websites where you did the evaluation, like, yeah, that was good. I just think those types of links get ignored now anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Even if you build black hat links, it was just gonna be like, yeah, waste your time and money. Go ahead. We don't care. We're just gonna ignore it. But CTR manipulation is definitely something. One, it messes with the data too, right? Where they're going to see more impressions, they're going to see more clicks potentially, and it's going to you could potentially have another issue where it's like, okay, well, now we're ranking, we're seemingly going up, but we're not getting more clients, so we don't really see the value in this, right? So I agree. I've some people swear by it.
It
But
works. I will say it
yeah,
works. 1,000% it works. It also has an ongoing cost. I hate that. The same reason why I hate paying for like citations ongoing. You really have to prove the value, and this is one of those things where it's like, there's better, more effective ways that are like, you do this one thing and then you kind of get a benefit that lasts a lot longer, versus like CTR manipulation. You have to continually do it. We tracked a client that was doing it for a while. When they stopped, about a month later, they went right back to where they were before. So it's an ongoing time, money, resource that's
Yeah,
like,
it's fair. All right, I'm going to pop over to the webinar chat here and bomb a few questions. So Chad asked, what about business listing citations and schema for service area businesses? How do you implement that? And do you just do organizational schema and only citations that hide your business address?
citations that hide your business address are usually not worthwhile. Again, unless they're like Angie or
Kind of
Thumbtack or
protect
like
it a little
sites
bit,
that
right?
rank.
Yeah,
Um, Schema, I think, is usually a big waste of time. Usually, I should say usually. It doesn't impact ranking unless it changes how you look in the search results. It's not really worth doing. So if it makes you get some cool new feature that shows up in the search results and helps your click-through rate, then awesome, do it. But the majority of schema doesn't do that. So I haven't seen any compelling reasons to spend time coding schema into sites.
fair enough. Yeah, we actually have an internal debate at our agency about schema. One of our people swears by it. And I've kind of always felt the same way. I'm like, I don't think it's a ranking factor. I don't think that it and schema can kind of be a pain in the butt to set up as well. I mean, there's plugins and stuff that do it, but I hate doing it's like a whole can create more problems than not. I do agree though that if you mark up like reviews on a practice area or a service page and you get them to pull through, but that also has mixed results in terms of working. Benjamin asked, could you achieve that with a hidden address and targeted service area since you could verify the location but not have the walk-ins? I'm assuming he's talking about what we were talking about earlier with a verified office.
I mean, you could, but again, then you're kind of limited because it's really tricky to have multiple service area business listings. You're under even more scrutiny than a brick and mortar would. So the more you have, the riskier it is. Still against guidelines for the record. It's just whether or not Google would be able to catch it. But the other problem with I have with hidden address listings is they don't rank as well. So we've done studies and shown that as well. We did a test last year, like hiding and unhiding the address and watching what happened to the rankings. It was wild. So yeah, unfortunately, hidden address listings don't rank as well.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions on Blueprint too about address versus service area, right? And I've always been under the impression that like a landscaping business or an attorney too, are service area businesses because anywhere that they don't have to come into the actual office to like landscape is probably or like HVAC and home service is probably a better example, right? They they don't really have people coming into the offices or literally servicing an area. Do you see do you see any sort of ranking performance or differentiation or improvements between toggling between the two? So like let's use landscaping or home services as an example, right? Like it should, since they are technically a service area business, do they rank better as service area business or they should be set up as an office location?
Always office, like in every case. But again, this is where it gets tricky. If it's a home address, you can't really get away with using it as an office. If you have an actual office, which a lot of HVAC companies do, then you absolutely won't want to show your address. And you have a storefront, you should have logos and things on your signs. So you would definitely want to do that.
Interesting. So I've actually never heard that before. So you're saying no matter like if like let's just assume that like you're not operating over home, which your clients should or shouldn't be, even though maybe for even start or whatever. But it should always be so just scratch service area period and just focus on okay.
You can. I understand there's a lot of home-based businesses where they don't really have that luxury. And so like Sterling Sky is like we don't have an office anywhere. So it's set up with my home address and it ranks based on my home address. Doesn't rank based on my service areas. I can't That'd be way too easy for people to manipulate if Google actually based ranking on service areas.
Do you get quality leads from your GBP?
Not really. I don't care. I live in the country. So it's like the target business that we have are usually in bigger areas. I wouldn't say anybody in Uxbridge is likely going to be looking for local SEO, but uh, it is, I think, still worthwhile to have one. We use it for reviews and things like that, right?
Yeah, of course, for brands. It's interesting because so years ago, I used to have 6 verified office locations. They were all Regis's. This was, 6, 7 years ago for our agency, New York, San Fran, like all the major markets in the US. And I got a lot of them to rank. And I did it more as a case study for, like the Blueprint type of community to kind of be like, look, we're really good at what we do, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They all ended up getting ripped down except for Miami, but like they never really produced anything fruitful. And my hypothesis has always been that for the like and this is kind of like something that I push a lot on people inside the blueprint, is that the whole first module of our program is all about market understanding and selection, because frankly, SEO just isn't a good fit for every business anymore. Meaning, like, you can still probably rank anything, but like the quality of what that ranking produces isn't the same that it was 10, 12 years ago. Hey, Ryan here. Hope you liked that video. If you want more, check out these 2 videos right here on the screen.